I think we have to focus on synergies, because right now I think if we do more together, our capacity to act at global level will increase.
So this is the U.S. removing troops from Germany. As you know, the U.S. removed troops from Romania last year, and now the president is threatening to do more. What is your reaction? And do you see this as the U.S. betraying Europe's security?
First of all, it's not a surprise for Europe. We expected this to happen. Of course, in the case of Romania, it was something planned. Here, it was a decision that was not based on the previous communication. So indeed, we have to adapt. We also need to mention the fact that the U.S. presence in Europe is also helpful for U.S. interests, in particular with regards to Ukraine, but also with regards to the Middle East. So the U.S. troops present in Europe were helping the U.S. interventions in the Middle East, and they are crucial for the defense interests that America has. Indeed, we have to adapt, and in the same time, we are investing a lot in Europe when it comes to our defense infrastructure, when it comes to our troops there. We are ready to take more responsibilities at NATO level. But it will take time. So we have to find the right balance between all of that. I think these kind of decisions have to be based on proper communication between partners, and we have to make sure that there are no risks generated by this kind of deployment.
If you can adapt in time, right? I mean, for instance, these 5,000 troops from Germany, they're not just any 5,000 troops. They're not, back office soldiers support. I mean, this is a combat brigade that was put there after Russia invaded Ukraine to boost European defenses, particularly in the eastern part of the alliance, against Russian threats. Can Europe deploy its own combat brigade to fill that gap, or is there going to be a gap, in time where it can't fill that hole?
U.S. presence in Europe is very important for us Europeans, and we really respect the effort that is being made by the U.S. to deploy these kind of troops on our continent, and they are needed, of course. Also to show Russia that we are ready to work together at NATO level to support our interests, to show that the U.S. presence in Europe will remain consistent and is valuable for the U.S. administration at the same time. So indeed, in terms of political message, I think this is not good for NATO, this is not good for Europe, this is not good for the U.S. In the same time, we have to do more. We cannot replace those 5,000 soldiers with European soldiers, but we can indeed invest more in European defense. There are currently plans for us to do more at NATO level, but also to invest in our defense industry. We invest billions of euros currently in the European industry, but I think we have to focus on synergies, because right now I think if we do more together, our capacity to act at global level will increase. Indeed, in Europe, there are different views when it comes to the intervention in Iran. Mm-hmm. You have countries like my own that are supportive of the U.S. Decision. There are other countries that do not fully support how the decision was made, and they would like further interactions and discussions before having these kind of actions at global level. But nevertheless, I think, again, for the U.S., their presence in Europe is also needed.
I just wonder, so here's Romania that does support the war in Iran, whereas others did not. And yet the U.S. still withdrew troops, last year. I know those decisions not connected, but Romania also suffers from lower NATO defenses in the eastern part of Europe. Is there any reward?
We are not supportive of the war. We are not involved in the war. But in the same time, we understand, of course, that there are U.S. troops in Romania that require further presence in the region, and they need to use the military base in Romania for these kind of defensive actions. In the same time, it's not about reward, it's about having a fair partnership. And I think we have to discuss more to define how this partnership will move forward in the years to come. It is clear that the U.S. needs more from Europe. In the same time, we have our limits. We have our own capacities, we have our own interests, in particular with regards to Russia, in particular with regards to Ukraine, and we have to discuss all those matters together. And I think it's about military intervention, but it's also about what we do in order to protect democracy in our region, to counter foreign interference, to combat disinformation, and to tell Russia, but also Iran, but also China, that they cannot do whatever they want in our region. So on those points, we can find common grounds. But we have to discuss those matters. For the time being, unfortunately, those issues are not being put on the table. There are only demands. sometimes from both sides, instead of having a real conversation. This is hurting the US, this is hurting NATO, and again, this is also hurting Europe to a large extent.
Now, you're in the US in part to discuss other areas of cooperation, particularly artificial intelligence, AI, and particularly at a time when the US is very much competing with China, for instance, on AI. Are you finding that there is a partnership that could work there?
I've met quite a few high-level decision makers here in the US discussing about AI, and everyone here is talking about US winning the race. But in the same time, I think the US will have difficulties in winning the race without Europe. And indeed, we are competing against China, and it's relevant for us to put together our know-how, our common investments. Right now, the US is leading this AI transformation. You have about 4,000 data centers. Europe is second with 3,000 data centers. By 2030, we have to invest together almost $7 trillion.
$7 trillion.
It's a huge amount of money.
Yeah.
So why compete against each other? So we have to really think about the supply chain, make sure we also have a common policy when it comes to minerals, raw material. Again, imagine us competing for minerals. This will increase the prices, will increase the cost, and no one will win at the end. So I think we have to discuss those matters. Soon there will be a discussion between the US President Trump and the Chinese President. We also are looking at that. If the Chinese are our competition, we have to discuss before having interaction with the Chinese on this important point and have a real strategy when it comes to the Western model in relation to the AI transformation.